now. There we go. So now we're live. There we go.
And we'll reveal our special guest once we say hello. He's currently hidden behind the thumbnail. It's a very special reveal, and you know, the thumbnail may or may not reveal him. You'll find out in a few moments. Hello, Stuart. Welcome back.
Hey, Samuel. How's it going?
It's good. I did an interview for Avalon today where I got to be in a new costume that I happened to get from the tailor today. So that's another new.
Fancy.
I'm pretty much out of ones to get though, so there's only so many new ones I can have. So Discovery, keep inventing new costumes, and Picard, keep making new ones. Keep making new ones, and we'll keep buying them. You make them like the plague.
All right. Well,
keep making them.
I think it's time to announce our special guest. You might know him from No Budget Productions, some really good, well-written fan films, very in-depth character development, and just some really great stuff. So today we would like to bring you Vance Major Owen. If you haven't seen his stuff, go check it out. I mean, what are you waiting for?
As the thumbnail shows, he can be multiple people, multiple eras, but there is life.
All right. Hey, welcome.
The dramatic swap.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks.
Anytime. Well, I mean, we should probably start off by just saying
By sharing.
By sharing the video. Yeah, go ahead and do that, and I'll talk to the people about super chats and talk to Vance while we're waiting for you.
Good job.
Well, I saw that costume that you shared in the Avalon chat earlier, Sam, and I got to say, like, as a guy who
he doesn't have his earphones in right now. He doesn't have his earbuds in right now because he's sharing. Just a second.
No.
But yeah, guys, welcome back to the show. If you haven't seen No Budget Productions, go check it out. I'm sure Vance is going to talk all about it, tell you all there is to know. And we have wanted to have him on the channel for a while now, and here he is. You guys have a chance to ask him any questions you'd like. A great way to support our channel is to hit that super chat button if you're able to. Ask us a question or give us a comment. And we will, of course, read those on air, as a lot of channels don't really read super chats all the time. We do. We pride ourselves on that. So if you can also hit that like button, that's greatly appreciated. And don't forget to hit the join button beside the subscribe button. If you're not subscribe, but you can also join the channel. It helps us on a monthly basis, and get you some cool emojis and stickers and stuff for the live chats. So if you join us quite regularly, which a lot of you do, we really appreciate that. So you can also head over to Patreon/Trekyards. It's another monthly way to help us out. And also all the links down below. There's the Teespring store, the TeePublic store. We got some really cool Trekyards merch. Lots of great stuff. Speaking of, Vance, I need to send you a Trekyards shirt. I'm just putting an order together now. I've got your size and everything. I'll just need to get your address when the time's right, and I'll get that sent off to you. So yeah, so Samuel's back now, so I guess he's shared all around. So
I use a
right.
I always try and think of a fun way of sharing these things, and my note was, you're the chap that's made the most fan films out of anybody, out of 7.9 billion people, and you're the most of that. So you're beating 7.89 billion people for that title. How'd you feel?
It's kind of an honor, But I will say, I feel like you do. Every time I see you, you're in like a different costume, and I think that's the only reason why I make fan films, just because it's that vanity thing. Like, I just want to see myself in a new costume, and that's my way to do it, So, because I saw that costume you shared with the Avalon people, and I was like, gosh darn it, new costume. It looks good on you, man. It looks good. So
thank you. And it's nice to.
Which one was it?
Well, I'll tell you off camera. No, I'll show Stuart off camera. But it's fun.
Wow.
I have the public picture on my phone and the prop through the camera, and it's amazing how, like, when I first put on my Nemesis uniform from my one from home, it looks good in person, but just your brain clicks how a camera works and how a cinematic they just look better on camera. They always do. Whole different experience.
Cool.
I'm definitely gonna try using
Vance,
shorts 'cause it's fun.
I guess we should start at the beginning. Let everybody know how you first got into fan films and what your first few were about.
How would you summarize yourself for the fans out there?
Yeah. I'm basically the guy that's kind of showing everybody, like, anyone can do what I do. With the phones that we have now, I mean, they take great pictures. They take, pretty good sound for the most part. I mean, unless you got wind blowing into the phone, but I mean, that's any mic. But I mean, I'm the guy showing everybody, like, you guys can do what I do. Editing software is available for the most part, for anybody, or you can find, within, Facebook, just asking your friends, like, hey, who can edit a film? Who knows how to edit? The thing about it is, like, my company is called No Budget Productions. I don't pay for 99% of my stuff. It's basically just outreach, like, hey, who needs music? Who can do music? Who can do CGI? Who can do acting? Who can do makeup? And then all of us just kind of reach out, and then we extend ourselves out here, and then out here, and then out here, and then, okay, well, then what do you need? And, well, I need this. Okay, well, hey, let's facilitate for each other and help each other out, and then we just continue reaching out. So I think I'm the guy that can show everyone, like, you don't have to have a huge ass budget to,
or even a budget, as is the case.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I did a fundraiser. From time to time, I'll do a $500 fundraiser or $1,000 fundraiser. But I mean, you'll get like 30 films off that one fundraiser, and that's. I mean,
it's just about props and costumes, really. That's what they tend to be, because you can't ask a Chinese sweatshop, can you please give me 10 free costumes? They ain't taking that. So some stuff costs money, Yeah.
And even at that point, you're still. I mean, you're driving to the studio. You're still paying a donation to say, hey, thanks for letting us come here, because you're doing electricity. You do put some for paint. The wear and tear. And then you're paying for like lunches for the people who show up. Even when we do shoot here in my quote unquote studio. Here, like, we do like potlucks. So I mean, even at something so simple as shooting here, or outside my house, we have like a huge tree strip, and we do away missions outside here. We'll have a potluck here at the house, so you're putting money in there out of your own pocket. So even when you do the very small fundraisers, you're still paying out of pocket, but I do think the one thing that I've shown is, everybody can do what I do. You don't have to sit there and just make excuses for, well, I just don't have the money to do it. No, man, anyone with a camera can make a fan film. And even in the one film that we had, Pen Pals, it was just me sitting on the bridge for Michael's film. And it was me making a log entry or communication to my pen pal on another starship. And it was recording something and just uploading that to YouTube. And that right there, because I didn't have an editor at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, but something so simple was a fan film. So again, it's you be creative and you can do it. So, a lot of people just don't, they get in their own way with, well, I don't have a budget, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, so.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to earlier, what got you started in fan films, and when did you start? Like, how long have you been around doing this?
Just about 8 years. In December, it'll be 8 years. I originally started when I went to Starbase Studios in Oklahoma. I went there because at the time I was networking, pimping out basically, people's Facebook groups or Facebook pages. I run a group called The Promenade on Facebook, and we have about 8,000 members. And it's a very family-friendly oriented group. We talk about, comic books, Star Trek, Star Wars, anything geek related. We just keep it family-friendly. It's a very no drama group. It basically runs itself at this point, because we very much know what it's about. And if you start drama, we boot you. Mm-hmm. But at the time, Richard Wells had invited me up because he was like, hey, we're shooting for this fan film called Yorktown, which I didn't know what that was, but I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, could you advertise for us? I said, sure. And then I saw a picture of George Takei sitting in the captain's chair. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. He said, yeah, we've got a bridge here. I was like, really? He said, yeah, you want to come down here and come see it? I said, dude, I could share butt space with George Takei. Heck yeah, I'd love to do that, man. Let's do it. So I called my wife, who was working overnight, and I said, "Hun, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I get to go see the bridge." And I grew up as a Next Gen fan. I hated TOS. Because of course, when you're a kid, anything your parents liked is instantly uncool. So seeing Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, I was like, it's Data and Worf, man. Screw those guys. But to go see the bridge, I was like, I've got to go do this. This is, when am I ever going to get this opportunity? That's ironic, because look where I'm at now. But I had to go. And my wife was like, look, if we're doing this, you are mowing that lawn and doing those dishes and, forever. And, of course I agreed, and being the man that I am, had no intention of following through. But we went when they were shooting, and, sat in the chair, looked at all the buttons, did the advertisements for them like they, like I knew it would be, good cross promotion with my people on the bridge, live the dream like most Trekkies that get to go do when they go to Ticonderoga, or visit race sets, live the dream. Well, I go back to work the next day, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm sitting on break, and a message pops up, and it's from Michael L. King, and it says, "Do you want to be in my film?" And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "What? Like porn? Like, what are we talking about here?" Like, who are you? Because I have no idea who this guy is. He said, "No, I make fan films. I'm from Starship Valiant."
And can you give us a sense of what was around back then? Because the landscape of fan films has changed drastically. So who was around at that point?
Oh, at that time it was Michael King, Starship Valiant, Starship Ajax, Starship Grissom, Dreadnought Dominion, and that was kind of about it.
I think Renegades I think all that stuff was then too.
Yeah. But like that was my field of vision.
Obviously,
was
Phase
kind
2,
of,
New Voyages, all that stuff.
Yeah. But that was outside my scope of what I could see, because I didn't know anything about, like, I think I had kind of laughed at the time, on YouTube, like Star Trek Continues. I clicked on it and saw it. I was like, that's not William Shatner. Bunk this. And I never gave it the time of day. So like fan films, it never even approached my mind. I'm like, I don't care about this. So when Michael approached me, I really had no idea what he was talking about. So he asked me if, do you want to be in my fan film? I'm Starship Valiant. I said, okay, sure. He's like, have you ever acted before? I said, no. I don't. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to play Star Trek all the time, and I had no friends because I lived on a ranch, but I would play every part, but I mean, I'd love to try. And he said, well, you look like you'd be a good engineer. And I thought that was really funny, because like, I don't even know how to change the oil in my car. My wife does that. So, I thought, okay, sure, whatever to get me the job. Great. I'd love to come play. So that's what got me started in fan films. And then, Michael and I, the first scene we came up there, we were going through, the script, and the guy that was, actually directing the episode, we were going through lines, and Michael, I think it was Michael, he was like, oh shoot, what was my line? And I said, oh, it's this. And he was like, oh, you know my line? I was like, well, of course I do. It's this. And then this is her line, that's his line. He was like, oh, you know the script? I said, well, of course I do. I memorized everybody's lines. And he was like, oh, and really? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't know I wasn't supposed to memorize the entire script, because like I didn't know that wasn't how it was, like I didn't know that's not how it was supposed to be done, So I went on there and I had everything memorized from everything. So but him and I had really good chemistry, and he was really open to ideas on the character and everything. So it was good. Hold on. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Damn. Hold on just a second. Let me shut the door. I have a contractor here, so hold on.
Yeah, if you guys can hit the like button, show your love for Vance. Feel free, ask a question.
And so can you pimp out which was then that first film and when it came out?
The first film that we had that was just me sitting on the bridge was Pen Pal, and that was one that took no editor. It was just me sitting there.
I mean the one with Michael King, like the one you went down to be the engineer in.
That one, if you watch, it ended up being eventually the Valhalla Stone, because that footage, it was supposed to be a Starship Valiant / Starship Ajax crossover, and it never got to see the light of day. So I acquired the footage from that and then put that in my film. But that was the first time him and I had acted on screen. So it's basically like I filled in the gaps. It's basically like our version of the Cajun Menagerie. So it's all the footage on the bridge that you see is the stuff that we shot there, and that's the actual first time that him and I had actually acted together.
And were you able to release one of your own films before that film came out then? So you were able to release your first actual footage after you already had come out with your own stuff? Or was that the first? That's funny.
What's that now? Yeah, no, and that's exactly how, the first actual time I was on film was in the Starship Valiant Legacy Special Edition. To where you hear me in the actual first film as at the very end of that one, but then when they did the special edition, he was like, "Hey man, I wrote the scene because we just built sick bay. We had gotten that up, and he was like, "Hey, I wrote this scene that Menard comes in and." I'd like to have you in there." I said, "Oh, awesome, cool." So, that was the second time I went down there, and it was a great scene because I come in and I'm supposed to be in this kind of frantic mode, and I kind of tell the captain, "Hey, we got to get the heck out of here," and he kind of tells me, "Screw off, we're not leaving." And again, I didn't know, since I didn't have any acting experience, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be frantic. So I'm outside the sick bay pacing back and forth, kind of putting myself in an anxiety attack. So when I walk in, my heart felt like it was about to explode, and I already have heart issues as it is. So I'm sitting there oh, I'm about to pass out. I'm literally sweating,
But I'm sure you sold the moment though. And that's the important
Oh yeah,
thing.
it was great. It was great. But funny thing about the special edition, when you see the scratches that are on my head, those are real. Because I had spent the night at Scott Johnson's house, which he was the lighting guy at Starbase Studios, and I slept on his couch, and his cat attacked me. So those scratches were real. Originally, it was just supposed to be bruising, but when his cat attacked me, I walked in the Starbase Studios, and everyone was like, "Dude, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" And they're like, "No, Vance, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, why would I not be?"
So I'm assuming the cat got a makeup credit then.
Yeah, he should have. He should have.
Now, your character is Menard.
Is confusing Menard.
Yeah, what's the impetus behind that? Where'd the name come from? What's the story behind that creation?
Well, my best friend growing up, his name was Jeremy Minard. And it's spelled the way my character's name is spelled, but the Michael mispronounced my name in Starship Valiant, and that's why, in the very first couple of films that you see me in, I'm always walking around grumpy and pissed off, because I always pretended I'm mad that everyone's mispronouncing my name, and that's why whenever you see me play Mirror Menard, I pronounce his name Minard because I'm getting that back, I'm owning it, So it was out of my two childhood friends when I lived in Washington. One, his first name was Eric, and then the other one, his name was Jeremy Minard. So it was out of dedication to those two because we would always play Star Trek as kids, and I'm always about. I mean, if you watch any one of my films, you'll always see. In the background, you'll see stuff that is either, Easter eggs for either my son made me something, or it's something for my wife, or my character's names for my childhood friends. So you'll always see Easter eggs for something else. So
I know the character's done a lot of things and been in a lot of different uniforms. Are they all canonically connected, or is it just kind of
summarize the vibe? Because you're known for a bit of everything. Yeah. I know there's a deep story, but how would you then? I get everything's spoilers, but you know, if you watch episode 406, just assume, assume everyone's spoiled. What's the overall arc then of the character, summarizing thousands of minutes?
The series starts off. It basically starts off like in the Cage era, and he goes through like TOS type.
And these weren't filmed in order, were they? So you've gone backwards in your own timeline, forwards. Like you've retconned your own stuff, and it wasn't a plan. It was so much as like ever evolving the grand thing, wasn't it?
Well, what's that now?
Well, I'm saying if you're able to go back and film a new scene of you being in Cage era, then you can then retcon a thing that you want to link in. You didn't film it in order. You didn't start in the Cage era and only now be in Picard, and you're not doing anything backwards. It's all over the place on purpose because you're trying to
Yeah. Well, the way my mind works, like whenever my mind really spider webs. So in my mind, like it like I really do have like all these different ideas, and it's like in my mind I just haven't filmed stuff yet. So it's never like with the stuff that I have for this ship called the Melbourne. It's like in my mind it like all this stuff happened. I just haven't filmed the stuff yet. So like the stuff that happened in the Cage era, it's like unless something pops up where someone has a different idea that they're like, hey, let's do this. Like George Kyan, the stuff that I'm working on with him, that's something that's kind of an anomaly. At least from my standpoint. So it's always nice to kind of step out and be like, hey, I didn't plan to do this, but let's do it. But the way my brain works is the stories kind of just spider web out. So it's kind of nice to kind of jump back and forth. But chronologically, like the character starts off like Cage era, goes through TOS, but he finds this crystal called quad lithium. It kind of gives him some glimpses of the future, some glimpses of the mirror universe. And it also is kind of like the Star Trek equivalent of like the Phantom Zone for Superman. So it's kind of like just this kind of like whatever the plot would need, it's quad lithium. But it also stops him from aging. So again, it's whatever whatever the plot needs. And so that allows me to just continue playing the character without aging. But again, at some point I need to stop because like my beard's getting kind of grayish. I'm not as young as I was or as thin as I was, 8 years ago. At some point it's like, dude, it's not as believable. But again, that's why I can play Menard in several different universes and several different eras. So it is the same character, except for when I play like Mirror Menard or Kelvin Menard. So that's the gist of it. So it's very simplistic, and I do have a playlist that has all of them in order. So you can start from one and just go through it. So.
And is part of his vibe that he actually changes as a person between those 250 years, or because he's ageless and he's obviously not feeling his age, is the point that you're acting the same in all of them? It's just the situations that are changing around you, or do you have distinct vibes as he grows in 200 years of life?
Yeah, no, like if you look at him when he's younger, like there's an optimism when I play like Cage era Menard. Like there's an optimism there. Like there's a little bit more Burt Ward, like wide-eyed, like, oh man, the universe, like this is really great. Starfleet's wonderful. And then in the TOS era, like he loses his wife, so there's a little bit more darkness. Like I'm trying to be optimistic, but damn, I lost my wife. Like how do I deal with this? And then a few years later, he finds this small boy who he adopts. So now he's a father figure. Then a few years after that, the quad lithium kind of takes the kid. So he's like, man, I gotta find my son. So now it's kind of a mission that he's now in search of for like the next 100 years. So by the time you meet him in TNG, he's still kind of searching for his son, but he's kind of given up hope. Into the mid TNG era, he gets his son back, which was a way that I got to shoot with my kid. Because my kid has a TNG uniform thanks to Gary Davis, and not really a TNG uniform. It's the Love Boat Next Generation era. If you've ever seen that one, I think it was Love Boat: The Next Generation. Mm-hmm. So my kid has that. So I was like, I'm going to put him in that. Let's get him on. Let's make that canon. But that was my way to write Royce into a few films, But if you look at him there, like there's a certain darkness in certain points in his life, and then there's a certain optimism. When you get to Mirror Universe Menard, like this dude is just the biggest jerk face you can be. And it's certainly nice playing the bad guy. Certainly my audience loves seeing me play him. But I mean, he's a huge psychopath, killing everyone around him, being very callous. It's fun to play, but I mean, it takes you to some dark places as an actor and as a person. But when I play Kelvin Menard, this is a guy who, in our universe, he loses his wife and goes down kind of a darker path. But in the Kelvin universe, I thought, well, let's some people, when they lose their wife, they kind of take a road of spirituality, because their wife was spiritual, they kind of take a road of faith. So why don't I take that and make Menard, what if he takes that road instead of going dark? Why don't we go lighter? Hey, I'll see my wife again one day. What if he takes that path? So what if this was Menard, but he takes that happier path and the path of faith? So I changed that Menard, and that one characteristic really changes the performance on a very subtle level, because everything else is changed from there. And then how does that affect the universe? Because now you have this attack on Vulcan, and how does that affect every other character? So that film is fun to play with, not only with my character, but other characters around him. So then you get to 100 and some odd years later, he's still optimistic, somewhat, how does it affect it? Because he's very different from our Menard. So it's fun to play different versions of the same character. Kind of like if you've ever watched The Flash, what they do with Harrison Wells, except I don't think you're ever going to see a council of Menards, unless Josh gets his way. So
with him being effectively immortal, you need to have people coming after you with swords. You need a Highlander crossover. Because there can be only one.
There can be only one. Right.
We got a super chat here from Matt Boardman, $5. Thank you so much, Matt. What has been Vance's favorite script or episode that he has done so far?
I would say for me it would be the Scribbler, because that was the one that's basically dedicated to my son. And if you watch that one, you can see him grow up. And I took bits and pieces from all of the films that my son had been into. I'm getting tongue tied, forgive me. You can see all the films that my son had been in up to that point, being from about 6 months old or 4 months old, where Menard finds him and picks him up, to being about 8 months old, to being about a year and a half old, to almost 2. Like you see him growing up through the years, and those are like home videos to me, but they're on screen. And again, like the thing that I love about my films, and this one in particular, is the fact that I've gotten to share my kid's childhood with all of you guys. And this is something that when Royce is a teenager or when he grows up, he'll be able to look back and say, this is something that I shared with my dad. So for me, it's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, hell, this room, we painted, we took my action figures off the walls. We took the posters down off the walls. I mean, this was the biggest man cave that I had, because I have a huge collection of figures. But him and I painted this room, and turned this into our own, mock TOS set, just so we could, have our own spaceship room. So everything I've done is to kind of share it with my kid. And so I would say the Scribbler, because that's my biggest love letter to my kid, is to say, hey, when I die, I'm going to be cremated. So there'll never be a gravestone for me, but I want him to be able to look at Scotty's station and say, that's my dad's seat, or he'll have a uniform and say, that's my dad's uniform, and this movie is my dedication to him. So I would say the Scribbler, because who gets to do that with their kid? So
it's a great answer. Speaking of episodes, how long does it take to write one? Like, what's the process in writing a script, or is it just kind of, all over the place? It
depends. Like if it's a shutdown night at work, because usually it's pretty slow. My Sam can attest to my scripts are not script format. They're they're very generic, and it's very much like, you can take the script and put it on a starship, or you could take it and put it out in your backwoods. It's just two people talking. It's very much like Clerks, where you have one person and another person walks into frame, they have a conversation, then that person walks out of frame, and that's my script. So it's just dialogue. So it doesn't take me long to write it, if I'm focused on what I'm doing. So it just depends. Not very long, because I can knock out, I think one night for Frank, I knocked out 3 full scripts for him, for his films. So it just depends if I have time. So not very long, because I get very passionate about these, because I see them as characters that I love to play with.
And how much of that are you able to plan then, the CG or the interiors, or, I mean, you should be able to work out how you're going to do certain things when you write them, or do you actively not write complicated things because you wouldn't know how to produce them?
No, it's kind of like when you and I worked. It's very much the same way. I basically told you, hey, here you go. This is what, this is kind of what I have in mind. Go to town, do it however you want. Like, I gave no limitations on anything. You basically had free reign to do whatever you wanted, and that's exactly what I have for the other CGI artists that I have. Because my thing is, if you're working for me, you failing is better than me succeeding, because I couldn't do any of that stuff. Like, this is me. If you tell me F off, flying with my spaceship, that's me. So if you don't do it, that's me, with the spaceship. So I don't want to do that. I mean, I would, and I kind of want to do that in one of my films, just to be like, I don't take myself too seriously, or going and grabbing one of my Lego starships and doing that, because I would, because I mean, you guys have seen my films, I'm sure, you guys know I'm not proud, but it's one of those things where it's like, you guys are helping me out. I'm not going to sit there. I mean, obviously, if I say, hey, I need a Galaxy class and it's flying by at warp, and you give me a Nebula class that's shooting torpedoes at the planet, like, what? Really, dude? Like, do you hate me? Like, that's the only time where I'm going to be like, that's not kosher, man. But I'm very easy to please, because I mean, I've worked for those people that are like, no, you've got to angle it 45 degrees this way and tilt it this way and rock the and I hate that, and I don't believe in micromanaging, because again, we're all here for fun, and once you take the fun out of it, what's the point? So
well, it also means though that, in examples where you're very much filming with an ensemble cast. Simple answer, I'll continue the statement. Do you actually direct them live while they're doing their recordings?
When we're hearing, like, when I'm here, like, a lot of the times I'm working with actors that haven't acted before, so, and some of them haven't even read this. It depends on the situation. If they've never acted before, I will just read them the script and be like, hey, I'll set my camera up, either on a tripod, or I'll just hold it, depending on what the situation needs. And I'll just read them the script, be like, hey, so here's this line, say it this way, mimic me, and then we'll go through it that way.
Well, I mean more the guest actors that are filming, like, in other parts of the country or the world. I mean, those guys, do you ever do like live directorials, or they just do that themselves?
No, I let them do it themselves. 99% of the time, I'm happy with what they do. I've never, like, sometimes they'll ask for like motivations, but again, to me, it's one of those things. I don't take it too seriously, and like, they see the scene, and it's one of those things of, you take the flavor out of it. So, I trust them to get where they need to go. Again, unless they're like if you're a Klingon and you're acting like a Vulcan, that's where I'm gonna be like, hey man, get a little aggressive with me here.
Yeah.
That's no time where it's like, that feels too wooden. But usually, like, us as fans, like, we kind of know where our motivations are. If I feel like there's information that they need to know, like, hey, you really hate my character, treat me like you want to punch me in the mouth. That's the only thing that I feel. Give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you haven't hit the like button yet, hit the like button and comment, ask some questions for Vance. That'd be great. And if you could super chat, please feel free.
I just find it interesting that then if the CG artists are doing their own thing and the actors are doing their own thing, then in reality you're not directing for the big pieces, the ensemble, pretty much anything except your own self. So as you were saying earlier on with the amount of just like people involved, it's such a crowdsourced filming process where there is no unified vision because everyone's doing their own thing, and then you kind of put it together, and that's the most fanness possible. There isn't a vision. There's just putting together what people send in, which is very unusual to not have like a unified vision and like a directorial slant. That's really unique.
Yeah, I don't. Well, some people would say careless.
Carelessly unique.
Like if you like, like if you've been with me on set, like I'm very open to people, like if they have an idea, I'm like, yep, let's try it, because the worst thing I could say is nope, don't like it. My only recommendation for people to, when they send something in, is give me 3 different takes so that I can have my choice. If you give me the same thing 3 times, that's where I'm like, come on, like give me 3 different takes, do it 3 different ways. But usually, again, like I know as an actor, I've worked for people who are like, say it word for word, always stick to it. But I always tell people, I'm like, look, and it's the same advice that I always give them. And so this is probably the only direction that I give any one of the actors. It's a dance with us. My lines are not going to change. So I don't care if you stick word for word to the script, you can, but stick to the intent. It's not the letter of the script that I care about, it's the intent. So if you and I are on set, Sam, and I'm sitting in the captain's chair and I'm like, report, and you're like, there's a warp core breach in progress, and my next line is, all hands abandon ship, and that's the script. Say we're on set and I say report, and you say warp core is going critical. I'm okay with that because I can still say all hands abandon ship. However, if I say report and you say the transporters are offline, what are you doing? Like, that's where I'm going to be like, that doesn't get me to my line. So I always tell people, and that is the only piece of advice that I give, get me to my line. Make me make sense. You see the line, and if there's something in there that's specific, get me to my line. And I'm not going to baby you. Get me to my line. And it's a dance. And I've never been disappointed with anybody. If I have, nothing comes to mind, but I've never been disappointed. And I know some people that are critics would say, well, this was a bad performance. Maybe, but at the end of the day, it's a fan film. So I'm not too critical. And I've seen in my own performance, I probably could have done better in some instances. But again, at the end of the day, we're all doing this outside of our 9-to-5 job. We're all doing this on our own free time. We're taking time away from family. So I don't criticize too much. I'm appreciative of what I'm doing.
You're not trying to do the best you can do. You're just trying to make it and then move on to the next thing because you've got these creative ideas and you don't want to spend a year working on one thing. You want to have done lots of things. So it's not the best. I'm sure you could do much, much better, but that would limit you. To me, 5 years may happen phenomenally because technology kept improving and it kept getting better. Now the final result is I'm super proud of it. But that's because I had to, I kept evolving. I spent thousands of hours on it because I kept, thinking I was conceptually done, and then better things.
Yeah.
I could have made lots of films in the meantime.
I know people, and it's not a slight on them, but I know people that are so meticulous on the finer details. They still have yet to even get past the filming stage, and that's one of those things where I have a good friend that I've had to include in one of my films where, you know, he can't get past the writing stage, you know, because he's so, well, I got to get this detail, and I got to get, and I'm like, look, man, go fail, go make a bad film, go make several bad films, and you'll fail upwards, you know. And I encourage that, and I think let me revise my statement earlier about what I bring. I think I've proven you can fail upwards, you know, because I've made some bad films, but I think that's helped me to make some pretty decent ones, you know. I think the highest compliment I've ever gotten from someone is in the film Menard, which is, you know, it's like a 6 or 7 minute film, and it spans the life of Menard and his wife Emily, and she dies in that one. And you know, it's a touching film, but this one gentleman had left in the comments. He was like, you know, my wife died a year ago, and I've been I think he was married like 30 some years, but he said that he'd been dealing, you know, he's been struggling to get through the death of his wife, and he said this film's really helped me. To me, it's stuff like that that's making films worth it. Like, to me, it's not a glossed over, super high polished film. To me, it's a very simple, touching film. And comments like that, it's like, this is why I make films, to tell simple stories, you know. So it's that feeling upwards, man.
I learn by doing, always the best.
Yeah, exactly. Well, going back to your actors, I mean, you get a lot of fans included in your fan films, which is one of the best parts about your films, in my opinion, is having. I see so many people in your films that I know from like Facebook, Star Trek groups, and you know, that have added me as a friend because of Trekyards, and it's like I see all the meshes going on there. So do people come to you to want to be in the shows, or how do you get people involved with these?
I am the biggest creeper. No, it's one of those things where, you know, of course, if I need something specific, I'll ask. But I look in the cosplay groups, and when I see someone that has like a certain makeup that I'm like, you know, that's really cool, you know, I'll reach out. I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about being in a Star Trek fan film? Or if I see someone in a cool uniform, I'm like, man, you know, I need someone in that uniform. Would you like to be in a Star Trek fan film? Because in my mind, like, I mean, let's be realistic. Almost all of my films are Combox films. You know, if I make something that's not, that's the exception, not the case. But realistically, if you're in a Vance film, you know, you're going on my monitor. So you're probably going to film from home. But when I see something where I'm like, that sticks out to me, I'd like to see that in my film. And like I was saying to Sam earlier, like I love uniforms. So if I see someone that's in, I'm sorry, as soon as I see somebody in that 32nd century Starfleet uniform, I'm gonna find a way to put that in a friggin' film. But when I see something, one, it makes sense money wise, because that means that's money I don't have to spend on, you know, myself. Two, it opens up your range of people that you get to work with. Three, a lot of times it's their dream to be in something Star Trek. And four, it opens up the audience for you, because now it's, hey, you know, they're going to share it with their friends, and now it brings attention to your channel. To me, I'm very much about grassroots. I'm not the biggest channel. I don't ever expect to be. And I like, nobody really watches my stuff. But it's kind of like when I was in high school. I wasn't popular, but everybody knew me. And that's the same thing as a fan filmmaker. Like, I'm not the greatest fan filmmaker, but everybody kind of knows Vance. Like, I pop up in a lot of fan films. I'm never the source of the fan film, but you always know what you're going to get with me. I'm always going to do a decent job of acting. I'm going to give you what you ask for. I'm there. I'm stable. You know, I don't know if you guys ever watch wrestling, but it's kind of like when you go watch WCW wrestling back in the 90s, or, you know, 90, 98, 97, you know, and you watch an Eddie Guerrero match, or you know, Juventud Guerrero match, like, you know, those guys are going to give you some good wrestling, you know, and the you know, Chris Jericho from that era, like, they were the stable, they were the backbone. You know, the Hulk Hogan's, those guys were just puffing out their own muscles and couldn't wrestle worth nothing. Or, you know, Kevin Nash was throwing out his knee left and right. But, you know, the backbone.
They had good mic skills, so you could always get good interviews and good promos from those guys. So it worked out. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, with me, you know what you're gonna get, you know, and that's, you know, that's one thing that I like doing with, you know, the cosplay people, and reaching out to just one or two new people, and you get to build upon, you know, the foundation of what you had before, you know, and it expands my universe, from being, you know, that Menard saga to Constar Chronicles to Constar Continues to Constar Completed. Like, it just continues expanding out to where instead of feeling like a Trek universe, I feel like I have my own sandbox, you know. So it's nice, you know.
Speaking of the Constar, we are ship fans here. How did the name come about, and what was the legacy behind the Constar?
It was the ship that I played with my friends is in the 5th grade. I thought at first I initially was like Constar, and then I was like, well, that sounds stupid. So I changed to Constar, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Now all my friends are going to think I'm cool now, and nobody still hung out with me at the lunch table. So I just ate my square pizza slice and got fat. So, you know, it's, you know, yeah, and that's how it came about, you know. So
how was it seeing it on screen, like realized as a TOS ship?
It to me,
when did that happen? Was that like very early on, or was that a little bit later after you've made some films?
Well, initially, if you watch the film Stormfront Part 1, initially I wanted, because my friend Jeremy and I had actually made that film of the Melbourne series. I initially wanted to put the Constar in that film. That was the ship that was supposed to be found. But it was originally written as a Project Defiance show, and then when the guy who was producing that kind of didn't really know what he was doing, Jeremy and I were like, okay, well, we're taking our script and we're going to go ahead and make Melbourne. So, you know, it's been nice working with you, but we're going to go ahead and get stuff done because you don't know what you're doing. So we kept the script that we had, but the original producer, when I said, hey, I want to put this ship in there, it's a nod to my childhood ship, he was like, Constar is a stupid name. Let's change it to Carson. And I was like, I was really irritated by that because I was like, you slob. So, you know, I was really ticked off by that.
As a ship guy, vaguely famous for being a ship guy, Carson Constar, better name as a Constar. Unreservedly.
Yeah, well, bless your heart. Bless your heart.
All I think is Carson Daly, and it's like, he doesn't deserve a ship name.
Yeah, to me, I was like, Carson, really? It doesn't really. So, which ironically enough, I still have the plaque for the Carson right here, the burnt up.
Wow.
But so when I went to do my own series, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, wouldn't it be ironic if the Constar became a famous ship and everybody knew it in fan films, you know, which, you know, kind of has. So to see it as a TOS ship, you know, you know, being on Valiant, it was a while before we actually got to Constar. It wasn't supposed to even be anything, but when we were shooting 5 films, which one of those was Menard, I thought, you know, if we're going to be on the bridge, and this is kind of my only time, you know, if I'm going to get to do this, let me have my let me have my little fantasy here and put on a TNG uniform and have you know, let me delight in this. So we, you know, what was supposed to be just a one shot was a film Resistance. And I thought, let's have this be the ship that Picard is referencing in Relics, as the Constitution class ship. And we're escaping because there's never established that there's not a starbase in Wolf 359. So let's have there be a starbase, and we're escaping, you know, we're on this ship. Obviously can't go anywhere if it's kind of a relic ship or a museum ship. So let's explain that's why we don't have any power, and we're not even worth the Borg's time. So that's why we have no power. There's nothing here. Let's do it.
And
so
I remember you emailed me for when you're doing that, and I had all these questions because you're one of the many people that I might work with, and you didn't know any of the answers to any of the questions. You had
Yeah.
no idea. None of the tech. They hadn't thought anything through. They didn't get back
Yeah.
to me because I
Yeah.
clearly was thinking too much about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like, I'm
It was
very
so new.
simple. You're like ping, 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 and I'm like, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think you shot me down at that point. Like, you were so far on. Like, this is where we're at. Like, yeah. Whereas now I know exactly to say, yeah, whatever you want, Sam. At the time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Whereas now it's like, we're on the film Wasteland, and I'm like, I trust you, Sam. Whatever you want, Sam. Like,
Yeah.
do you, Sam? So yeah.
Wasn't the stuff cool in Wasteland?
It was great, dude. Yes, it was great. Yes, I loved it.
I killed
Hey,
so many Klingons.
Samuel even asked me questions that I don't know the answer to. So he likes pushing people to their limits, and that's a good thing, I think. So yeah.
Yes, he makes it better for what he gives, man. It's you never look at that and go, I think you're sloughing, Sam. Yeah, I never hear that. So no,
There's always reasons for what I do. So if I'm asking questions there because I want to make it better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Look,
So does anyone have any questions for Vance? By all means, if you want to ask away, this is your opportunity. And if you want to support the channel, you can also throw in a super chat or two. That would be great. Hit that like button if you haven't.
Well, I've got another question then. Is because we talked about this earlier about doing so many. Is there one story you've yet to tell that you'd like to actually dedicate maybe 6 months to one film to make it on a higher level, like some other teams? Even go to the sets and film, everything on set. Take your time. Is there one story you think that needs to be done properly?
I do.
Because the sets are easy to access now in several locations. It's the easiest time to film things.
I do. There's a story that I want to do, and like before COVID happened, I had about 6 or 7 films. One of them actually had Stewart in them. So, but if I only had to do like one kind of last film, because I'm taking a year off to kind of just breathe, because I was supposed to stop when COVID happened. And then I was like, well, I'll just tell a couple, I'll tell 10 that I can do at home. And then 10 turned into 25.
I mean, this is your 5th retirement. So.
Right. And not to mention, working on constant YouTube shows. So it's like, I do need a breather, not retirement or quitting or, because that's like, realistically, that's, I'm going to do this till the day I die.
And beyond somehow.
You're right. There's going to be a film released after I'm dead. It's like he's still doing it.
Well, to be fair, you have enough footage. Just re-edit you for new films every year. All using old footage. Yeah.
Right.
It's not that morbid.
But I do need a breather, and I do want to focus on Royce and be there. Like I said, I'm taking him this weekend to go camping. Like I just need to detox, but I do need, like, if I could do like one film that I think is worth telling, I would love to tell a film with Captain Mickle, who is the captain that takes over from Menard after Menard passes away, and I'd like her to go up against Mira Menard, which we call him the Phantom, and I'd like for that to be kind of our version of Wrath of Khan, where he goes and films the Mirror Constar on Alex's bridge, because of course we've already established what the Constar looks like, which is Wolf's Bridge, but I'd like there to be that kind of, like, I've already got a story that I'd like to do, but I'd like to do something like that where we kind of sit there and take our time and we get to know, hey, after Menard dies, like this is this story continuing, because we've already delved a little bit after, but we never get to see, hey, this is now Captain Mickle's ship. What are her adventures like? What are, because we still have the Phantom lurking about as the big bad of my series. So I would like to sit there and do that. Like I said, Wrath of Khan, because I feel like, you know, we've built this character up. My audience loves the character. But I would like to see that finally put to an end and say, all right, let's finally kill this guy off. And okay, now I've told everything I need to tell. Let's be done. You know, but then I'm sure as soon as I'm finally done, Royce is going to be like, all right, I'm ready for my uniform. All right, son, let's go do this, you know. So
I was just gonna say, do you ever see an end to this? Like, is there any a day you're going to be like, I'm done telling all my stories?
I don't think so. Like, I mean,
So
I know Royce gets excited because, I mean, above his bed, he's got a picture of all of us. Like every time we go to set, he's got those pictures above his bed. Like when we made the initial sets here, before we did that stuff over there, like, you know, he's got a picture of us sitting here taking a selfie. Like every time we go to sets, he's got, I think, like 5 or 6 pictures above his bed of every time, you know. So it's ingrained in him. I mean, like today before we got on this, we were playing spaceships. Like I grabbed my big Galaxy class starship and firing torpedoes at him. He had his Vorcha class and he was firing the whatever the laser blasts are, like, and we were basically playing tag while firing torpedoes at each other, you know. But I mean, we've been doing that since he's a year and a half. So I mean, Star Trek's ingrained in who he is, you know.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it'll ever stop. So.
Well, Eric Martin throws in a $5 super chat. So thank you very much, Eric. He says, you are making better Trek than CBS on a small budget. Impressive. Where do you get your story ideas from?
I get them from my life. I mean, realistically, like some people will knock my films and say it's not real Star Trek. And the thing is, like, they're not wrong. Yeah, they're not wrong. You know, and some people will say my films are true Star Trek, and they're not wrong either. And you know, there's room for both. The thing about it is, like, I feel like my stories is what Star Trek is about, which is just a story that happens to have that Star Trek wrapper. Because I mean, if you go back to TOS, those were just moral stories that happen to take place in that universe. And that's what I've done with my stories. I've taken inspiration from stuff that's happened in my life and just put it in that universe and said, well, if this happened with this character, how do we put this in a 24 or 23rd century or 24th century setting, and let's tell that story. And that's been very therapeutic for me because, you know, I've gone through some crazy stuff, and other people have too. And let's relate. Let's have people relate to that, you know. And some people do relate to it a lot. Others not so much. And that's why I don't get mad when people say this doesn't feel like Star Trek, because, well, you're not wrong. You know, it's just, you know, it's a taste issue. You know, it's like some people say, I prefer Coke over Pepsi. Well, okay. You know, to me, I have no taste buds, so I can't taste either or. So, you know, it doesn't bother me if people don't like my stuff, because, you know, but it's inspired from my life. And so if, you know, if you like Eric Menard, that's 99% of who I am. So it's taken from my life.
And Mike Longo says Vance's characters have depth and history, which, yeah, I got to admit, I've watched a lot of your stuff, and I do like a lot of the dialogue that you have. So I do like the back and forth on the screens. Even it's a very creative way of doing things when there's a long distance between you and the actors, literally and figuratively. Yeah, your characters are really, I think, well fleshed out. So that's one of the things I really appreciate.
Well, that's one of the things, like when I write dialogue for a character, I try to think, you know, if it's someone that I expect to be reoccurring, like I'll take inspiration from, well, who is inspired from, and then what would they say to me in this situation? Because I try for it not to be self-serving, because of course everybody wants to be the Captain Kirk in their own series, or everybody wants to be, you know, the
I'm just a bridge officer in Convergence. I have one line. Don't want to be the captain. No interest.
But like everybody, you know, everything's always, you know, everything's always self-serving for, you know, most people. And for me, I always try to have it be, you know, does the story need to be told? So even on my bad films, like the story I feel still needs to be told. But for the characters, I always try to write it and be you know, what would this person say to me in real life? Like if they would tell me, you know, hey, screw off, man, that's not how you do this. Well, then that's the line is going to be. If they would be a little bit more comforting, then the character's going to be more comforting. Like if you go to the film, I forget which one it is, but it's a character named Lieutenant White. He's a really perverted character. Like everything he says is a perverted character. Even when the station is blowing up around him, he's like, if we could only get that pulse off inside that hole, and, you know, and like, I mean, and like the one guy on the monitor is like, only you, man, only you. Good luck with that, you know, like, because he knows like this guy is just, and he doesn't realize that he's being perverted, you know, but like everything he says, you know, and you know, but it's because like the guy he was inspired from is like that in real life. He doesn't realize that everything he says is just, really, dude, you know. But the film works, you know, as everything, you know, it's a tragic moment because the character is about to die, but it's a tragic and funny moment at the same time, and I feel like that's why my films work, is because, you know, they do feel like real people, you know.
Colin Barrett says, when will we see No Budget Productions film with both the captain and commander in it?
You know, that's up to them, you know. It's, you know, their schedules are, you know, very busy, you know. I like I said, I've got one for Stewart, you know, and it would take nothing to write, you know, the good old commander in there, you know, if he's willing to grace me with his, you know, many uniforms that he has. I mean, they both have been in, you know, No Budget Productions films, so, you know, but together, you know.
Well, that's why I said to you when I was in Wasteland briefly, as just the guy that got killed. It's like, how many uniforms do you want from me? You know, not many people have multiple, all are tailored and, you know, look good. And it's like one. I'm like, oh. So it was two originally. Down to one.
You did really wonderful in that. Like you did the CGI, and you had your father in the background. Like, I mean, and that's one of the things that I like about it, is like you pass something off to someone and they have an idea, and I'm like, yeah, great, go for it. You know, like I very seldom will tell somebody no, because like you it's people like that make me look better than I am. Because my thing is just like, again, I would have been happy if you just sat in front of a blank wall and just said your lines. I'd have been like, okay, but you didn't. You're like, hey, I got this bridge I'm going to do. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then you're like, I'm going to have my dad stand over there, and he might say a line. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Again, I mean, this tells you how much of a yes man I am. You know, I'm very collaborative on, hey, whatever you can do, man, I am happy with, you know. So I love working with people just because, like, I want to be as inviting as possible, you know, because again, like I said earlier, you know, those people that micromanage and, no, you've got to do this and you better do this for me. I don't work for people like that. I don't want to be like that for other people. So, but I'd love to have both of you guys in a film. You know, I mean, I can always edit the script that, you know, Captain Foley is going to be in. So,
although I think he also means as our respective characters in Trekyards, rather than, you know, because I exist as a character in the Next Gen era, but obviously I would not be alive. That's always been a problem with me and Stuart, because we've chosen antithetical points of the timeline. But I think it means like a comedic, like, oh look, we have our own ship on the Trekyards ship, you know, something slightly more self-referential rather than be just two people, etc.
I mean, honestly, we have our own good idea for getting us together in universe, but don't know if that'll ever happen. So,
right on.
Although Nick Cook asked a question a little while ago, Nick Cook from Intrepid did ask, and you half answered this, but I want to double down a little bit. You answered how long you want to make fan films. The answer is until post-death. But also, he says, what lessons, if any, do you take from older fan films that preceded you, like Exeter, Hidden Frontier, New Voyages, and then Intrepid?
Oh my God, Exeter is like that one right there. That one right there, that inspired me more than Starship Valiant did. You know, and that was the one that Michael King sent me to show me, hey, if you want to know anything about fan films, watch this one. I mean, he sent me that before he had anything of his. before he had any type of, before I even knew what Valiant was, he was like, hey, watch this, to get me interested. I mean, just that opening shot of the people on that mountain and seeing the saucer section of that ship in the background. I mean, that was a great opening shot. And that showed me that you can have, I mean, all those sets were like just miniatures and whatnot, that, I mean, that was a great story. You had great characters. You wanted to get to know those people. I take a lot of inspiration from them. I mean, they had a lot of heart and soul. I don't know how long it took them to make that. But that right there, it's just, wow. I mean, it looks big budgeted. I mean, it's something you can slap up on a big screen TV and on a Saturday night and just be like, man, I spent an hour with these characters and I don't feel like I wasted my time. I can't always say that with Star Trek Picard or Star Trek Discovery. As much as I might enjoy an episode or two with them, I can't always say the same thing. The thing about old Star Trek is I used to get really excited watching it. That used to be the thing where 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, if somebody's in front of the TV, I'll throat punch you, get out of my Star Trek way, now it's like, if I'm 3 hours after the fact, I'll get to it when I get to it.
It was amazing that only Lower Decks, I was like, I cannot wait for the next episode. And I was anticipating, I sat down like, I'm going to save this half an hour. All the other shows are, you exist, you watch them, you see what you can see, but that's the only show. Orville was mostly that as well, but, it's nice to always have one of the new shows, but like, I'm actually excited for this. Can next week hurry up? Yeah, no? Okay, gotta do the work in between. Shit.
Yeah, see, Orville was a great show. Like, that was one of, like, that reminded me of what I felt as a little kid. And that's what I'm waiting for with Strange New Worlds. I'm hoping that recreates. I mean, there's elements that I like with some modern Trek, but sadly, some of it's far and few between. And that's not ragging on it. Like, there are elements that I enjoy. I mean, obviously, I'm filming and I'm releasing films in the Star Trek Picard era. Obviously, I watched it. I took notes on what I enjoyed, what I wanted to elaborate on, what I wanted to fill the gaps of, but for me, it doesn't inspire me as much as classic Trek. And it's not just nostalgia. It's, I want to fill in the gaps and explain some things, because I feel like they could have gotten 2 seasons worth. Give me the Android storyline, and then next season give me the Borg Romulan storyline. Like, you cram too much into one season. It's the same thing with Star Trek.
Then.
Yeah.
No, it's like Star Trek Discovery season 1. You give me the Klingon storyline, and then next season give me the Mirror Universe. Like, you don't need both, because you did both poorly. As much as I enjoyed the Mirror Universe one, like, we didn't spend enough time there. You just didn't do enough justice. And it's like they were trying to throw everything at the wall and see what stuck, trying to get everybody to join on. And to me, that's not, you're not secure in your own product if you're grasping that much.
Well, and that's the problem with episodic versus serialized. If the overall arc of the series is poor, it doesn't matter how good the individual episodes are. When they link back to the big arc, it kind of fails. Whereas in TNG, we've been reviewing that, and you can say, okay, that one's less good, that one's less good, that one's exceptional. But the season 2 of Discovery, the overall story arc is pretty awful. And so there's only so many episodes in it that kind of work, because they keep factoring into a flawed thing that keeps building to poor moment. The whole thing gets worse after you finish it, because like, oh, was that it? Whereas TNG says, oh yeah, there's 11 good ones and 9 mediums and 4 bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's one reason why I like Orville. I think work, like, they have the overarching, but yet, I mean, they're not. I mean, they take risks too, but it's not. I don't feel like I have to stop taking my heart medication after I'm done watching an episode. Whereas with Discovery and Picard, God, tell a joke from time to time. Shit, get a whoopee cushion. I mean, come on, man. Like,
or a fart
or a
bag.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh.
Yeah.
Season 2. Just saying.
Oh man.
That was a joke. I was trying to do what you're asking. Dad jokes for the.
And do you get my fart bag joke? Do you get the reference? Good old American fart bag.
No.
Get it? Red Letter Media.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
Now, I think it's Daniel Vance was asking earlier about a Ghostbusters project. So I know that's kind of out of the Star Trek wheelhouse, but what's that all about for anybody that isn't aware of it?
So I'm doing a film called Something Strange. um, and I'm doing that with my son Royce and one of my coworkers at work. And if you guys know Mr. Raygun, Jason Spriggs. So it's basically I had two paranormal encounters as a kid, one with Ghost and one with the Hat Man. So I'm telling those stories as the world's kind of falling apart. So I thought this would be kind of fun to kind of tell a story with my kid and do some visual effects because Jason Spriggs is really good at visual effects. So it was just kind of a fun little fan film. It's not going to be super long, probably maybe 15 minutes, but something that's not Star Trek because and we started filming a small part of it when Royce got his Ghostbuster outfit because he's always saying, I ain't afraid of no goats. And I'm like, it's ghosts, son, ghosts. So I wanted to get that on camera before he realized that he was saying it wrong. So that'll be in the movie. But he really loved dressing up as a Ghostbuster. And then, I got mine. So, there we are in like 90, 95-degree weather, my man boobs are sweating, in a Ghostbuster outfit, but I'm there with my kid, looking for ghosts in the middle of the day in the hot sun, fighting ghosts. So,
Cool. I look forward to that one actually, because anything Ghostbusters is cool. So yeah, looking forward to that one.
It'll be a fun movie. I mean, there'll be some serious moments to it. Obviously it's not going to be, it's not going to be the fun romp that the female Ghostbusters movie was to those that enjoyed it. But it will be a fun movie, especially at the end when Royce's character comes in. To me, it's very reminiscent of when Rick Moranis' character saved the day in Ghostbusters 2. Because I loved that moment. I was like, yeah, you go, guy. Like, even though it wasn't him, it's like, oh man, this is such a nerd. Like I loved Lewis. Such a great character.
Eric Martin throws in another $5 super chat and asks, so how many hours do you have to put into a film typically?
It really just depends. Like, I mean, I'm a very lazy filmmaker. I think we've kind of established that, where I just sit there and the camera's on in front of me and everyone else does the heavy lifting, as Samuel has pointed out on the show. No, it's really it really just depends on the script. Like I know George and I have the film called The Pretender that's supposed to be coming, and that one will probably be weeks of filming, just because there's more than just me sitting in front of the camera reading the lines. There's actual work involved. I mean, I have to walk. I mean, do you know how hard it is for someone to walk? Yeah, right, Sam?
Talk
right?
At the same time?
Yeah, and chew gum? Yeah. Who would have thought? Yeah. No, it really just depends. Like sometimes I can knock out, 3 or 4 on a weekend night and knock those out. If I have to set up something in my den or change the setting of what it is, like usually setup, takes more time than actually filming the stuff. Because again, I hold the script off camera, and then it's very much like, and then read the line, and then say the line, and then say the line. I mean, I really am lazy, because I don't memorize anything in my own script. I mean, I write them, and then I'm like, all right, I'll trust it. I know what I'm doing later. And then when I fail at knowing what I'm doing later, I'm like, the critics will be okay with me. And then when they're not okay with me, I'm like, I'll do better next time. And then, I just keep, continuing to stumble. It's like the domino effect. So, it just, whatever gets me through my night. So,
So there's a lot of is there a lot of editing time? Like what program do you use for editing, and how long does the whole process of editing take you after you got all the footage?
I have a wonderful editor. His name is Trekyards. And he's been through probably about 90% of my edits. And it really just depends on the film. Like if you go to Menard 2 Hemorrhage, that's my longest film, and I think that's 47 minutes, 43 minutes or 47. I think it's 47 minutes. And we had a film in 2 weeks that's coming out called Unsteady, and that one is, I think, 40 minutes. Both of those took like a month and a half to edit. Unsteady took a little bit longer, maybe, because there was a lot more than just people sitting in front of a camera. But usually it doesn't take all that long to edit, maybe a week and a half, because again, it's just a lot of the times it's what background do we need? What, if no background is needed, then it's just, clip, good. There we go. We got to tighten this out, add CGI. Okay, now we're good. Add some music, add some sound. What do we need for credits? So it's not super hard. It's just, rendering, composing, adding music. But who do we have for the screen, the comm box, like, figuring those things out. And setting those things up. It just depends on how many people are talking, how many scenes we actually have. And I never say, okay, we've got to stay within that 15-minute guideline rule. We can't go past that. I always just tell a story and say however long it is however long it is, because everyone, when the guidelines first came out, were they were losing their head and saying, if you go past this, they're going to sue you. And I'm like, dude, my people are wearing sneakers. Nobody's going to sue me, and nobody's going to confuse me for discovery. If they do, something's wrong with them, So I think we're pretty safe. And I do think it's the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, and they are just guidelines. They're not laws. And plus, it would be simpler to just send out a C&D instead of, oh, they're going to sue me. No, nobody's going to sue me. I mean, what are you going to get? My, Christmas story mug? I don't have anything for,
That mug is probably very fragile, I bet.
Exactly. So it really just depends. But for what editing software he has, I'm not sure. I know. His internet isn't the fastest, so I feel like he frustrates himself when he's like, I'm uploading it, it'll be done in 12 hours. I'm like, I can hear your teeth grinding on this one, Trey. I love you, man. But he's been through, I feel like we've been through thick and thin, on these films, and he never complains. He's the best at what he does for me, and he knows exactly what the feel of the episodes should be. And I love the guy to death, man. He's the best. So
cool. Well, any more questions out there from anybody? We're probably going to be winding down soon here in a minute. So
we don't have the last super chat slot, but have the last question slot.
Yes, and yeah, don't forget about the last super chat slot.
Unless
even $1, just snipe in there.
Unless Mark's got any questions for us, because it's not often you get both of us together.
Vance for us?
Yeah. So you got any questions for us while waiting for the audience to have the last question?
Well, I do have a question. So the film that you're included in, like, a new series for a whole bunch of other fan filmmakers, which is kind of like, what exactly is that show that you guys are doing? Because you got Gary on there, you've got Nick on there, you've got just a whole bunch of people. What exactly? Because I'm not, like, I've got tunnel vision on a lot on Facebook, so when I see stuff, a lot of it passes my way, and I've got like 2 seconds to sit here and figure stuff out, and if I can't in 2 seconds, I'm like, okay, I gotta go. So talk to me like I'm 5. What exactly are you guys doing?
I'm doing a collection of fan film shorts which each have a specific visual and creative cool thing, and each of them has at least one crossover partner that will film elements. And just like you saw in A Long Way From Home, they still feel like they're on a set, and get away with as much lockdown, not be the feel as possible. So I'm writing, directing, editing them all, CGI for them all, and everyone else is just providing me with some clips. But because it tends to be that the top dog of every team is the guy that is the crazy one that's organising it, that also has the most kit, they can film themselves in relatively good definition and green screen, etc. So, you limit to the people that can do it best, and hopefully it'll make it look as if they're filming. I've even got a few moments where they're actually talking to each other on the same shot, even though they're going to be filmed in different countries. But if you only use it once or twice, it should work.
Nice.
Now, will that utilize any of Gary's set, the shuttlecraft, the runabout that they have going on?
Not in this one, no. He didn't have it when I was writing them. I mean, he had bits of it, but we didn't have a timeline for it. But no, he's going to be playing both playing both a First Contact Admiral, because he's got that costume, and his TOS self. Mostly, cameos. Well, neither are a cameo per se, but because everything takes place in the First Contact era, it's hard to include others from earlier eras. But that's happened to work, and as I was writing that script, I was like, ooh, because that's a Star Trek Stargate crossover film, and at the end, the ship that happens to pick up the TOS character is the Dominion. I thought, oh, that makes so much sense. So, yeah, you get a fun little roll at the end.
Yes, son. I'm not sure. Watch Mr. Red, okay? Turn on Mr. Red. Toy Story's over with. Sorry, he was watching Toy Story and it shut off on him.
Oh, no.
So
That's all right.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and as for me, I'm not doing anything to help Samuel. I'm going to be in one of the fan films as Captain Foley.
Sort of.
Sort of. But yeah, so.
Short number 2 is non-canon. It's to help my dad's mental health. I wrote him to the hero of his own story because he was doing pretty bad in sort of October, November. I wrote a film within a weekend to let him be the star. Given the fact that he can't act, like actually act, you write it knowing what he can and can't do. And I had to utilise myself, otherwise there's no one to talk to. But it's a TMP era film, and he's in it as his TOS self, and the Avalon guys are going to provide the others to talk to provide some backstory. And that's mostly filmed on my side, and Stuart cameos at the end. It's more than a cameo, but you know what I mean. He appears at the end as a TMP Captain Foley, but not canon to anything else we do, because I'm not a TWAT character and he's not a TMP character, and he's not on the USS Foley, and that's fine. It's just to give Captain Foley the captaincy. I've said for years now the joke is he'll never be the TOS Captain Foley in my films. That's no fun.
Because he's a bastard. That's fine.
So something I wondered, doing your Trekyards, when you guys do the ship, like the ship breakdown type stuff, the one critique that I had about Star Trek Discovery season 3, sometimes the season 1, hell, even Star Trek Picard, is you never really get what I would consider beauty shots of the ships, and so it's very hard to sit there and be like, man, this is a great looking ship, because you don't really know what you're looking at, and you're like, I still don't know what a Discovery Klingon ship looked like. I couldn't pin. If you had a Babylon 5 ship and a Klingon ship, I'd be like, there's a 50-50 chance I'd get it wrong. The one thing that I appreciate about you having stuff that you put up, I at least have a chance to be like, oh, okay, so at least now I have a side point of view of what it looks. Okay. I was really ticked off when we got inside their little in season 3 of Discovery, that little sphere, starbase, black hole thingy. And you got all these ships everywhere. And when you're passing by something, you're like right up here. And you're like, what? Like, what are we looking at? Like, there's no beauty shot of nothing. And everything's so disjointed and disoriented. And how do you come up with looking at those? Do you do the same thing we do? You kind of just best guess it and go from there? Or do they send you, hey, here's our blueprints, because we don't know how to actually zoom out the camera?
Well, the switch was broken that day.
That's what it feels like, yeah. Because when Tully says Voyager J or whatever, I'm like, how do you read that? Because I had to rewind it like 3 times to go, where do you see what? Oh, okay, there it is. Like, okay, like I had no idea what they were talking about. Like nothing's clear, everything's hurting my eyes. I don't know what I'm supposed to focus on. And that's just in general on the show, let alone the view screen. So how do you do it? Because that amazes me that you're able to do that.
Samuel does a lot of close-ups and enhancements on some of the images that we get, the screen caps. So that's basically the secret right there. Plus, we also get if we get a good enough look at the ship, we can have it made in 3D or something approximating it. So
well, it's a lot of different things, and we try not just to there's a lot of shows out there, podcasts or whatever, and we like to think we're not a podcast or a web show because we put more hours in per show than a podcast would do, which is nothing as podcast, but we add that extra vibe, especially with the ship shows. And so whereas another podcast might just take one screen cap, one moment, say, here's a ship review, whatever, I'll go through every single frame of the potential, what might be useful, find the most in focus frame, do some enhancements, do some photoshopping, raise the brightness, try and get the clearest, do a comparison graphics with as many angles as possible, so when you look on screen you see as much as you can. We work with Star Trek Online sometimes, and I'm able to get views from them, and then get a scale, and then I do custom charts based on that, so you get to see it, visualize it, because like you say, you can't even tell in context when it comes to that in the show, but when you can see the Discovery, say in season 1, next to every other ship, that's something you will never get a sense of, like next to an E. But here we do it with the only people that can, and it's like, oh my god. In season 1, we also worked with one of the Star Trek video games that actually gave us assets, or at least we had assets from them at the end. So certain Discovery assets were able to then show licensed assets and do beauties of it, etc. And obviously original assets, etc. So it's a hybrid of everything, but looking for the right thing, doing some enhancements, and then we can kind of we're used to this. This is our job, so we can really see the stuff for the ships. And 9.5 times out of 10 in your life, you don't ever truly stop and look at one frame to analyze it. That's very rare, let alone the best in my focus frame. And so when you find the best frame enhanced and stare and look at it, you can pinpoint stuff more than just a casual view certainly can.
I feel like Discovery one day is gonna just, when you freeze frame that and zoom in, I feel like one day you're gonna get like a ha Sam on it, just because that stuff, like bless your heart, man, because again, like I said, I wouldn't know what half the stuff is if I wasn't sitting there seeing someone share a Trekyards post, so, and that was something that I always kind of wanted to reach out and ask, but again, like I said, I got blinders on, so I never can take the time to do it. But I was always curious to be like, how does he do it? Because like I said, that to me, it's always frustrating to be like, I don't know what ship this is. The Klingon ships were just so what, so, kudos to you, man. Cause that's a lot of patience. I really commend you, man. Cause it's good stuff. So,
well, and we don't get amazing views. We never have. The algorithm does not like us, but we're the guys that do that. And the guys that appreciate it really appreciate it, and that's great. There are people like us out there, and we're here to be there for them because if we work hard and put out there. Yeah, I mean, we're the only people that look at every time there's a new comm badge or tricorder, we do analysis and we break it down, or we do comparison. Every time there's a new uniform, I do scale comparisons, and I absolutely love bring Stuart, because I don't show him the stuff beforehand. I want his genuine first reaction, and I even while doing the graphics try not to really think about it, just try and do it. And so I've done, for the Admiral's uniforms, do 5 in a row, and you said, oh my god, there's a link here. So you actually have to go back to TNG Season 2, Episode 9, and put them side by side and say, either that's a fluke that they connected this uniform design, or they, took a really interesting reference. But no one's has done that, really. So, we do it because no one else does. And that's okay.
But
Are you ever going to do a uniform review of the Generations What If design?
We've mentioned it. We've never done one specifically. That is definitely one that we have not. We should.
We have talked about it a few times though.
Dude, if you ever do, please send me that link, because I love. In fact, I made my own mock version of that in an after credits at the end of one of my films. I forget what the name of it is, but I loved that uniform ever since they came out with the action figures. And I was so disappointed that they never did anything with that in any type of fashion. But if you ever do, send me that link, because I'd love to see what your take on it is. Because outside that one yellow picture or that, you know, the yellow uniform picture that they have, and then the one grainy picture of LeVar Burton wearing it. There's really not much of anything out there besides just design. So if you ever do come up with anything, I'd love to hear what your insight is, because stuff like that really, you know, interests me. You know, because we could have got something very different. You know, so.
I know we talked about it when we did the Lower Decks uniform review, because it really is, they clearly took inspiration from that. And we pinpoint that straight away. So that's some ideas. But yeah, that definitely we haven't looked at properly yet. Gosh, he found the one thing, Stuart.
That's good, though. Matt Boardman throws in $5 and says, there's a reason why you don't get beauty shots of the ships in the new series. They're not well built or textured models at all.
And he should know. Although that said, though, in season 2 of Discovery, they changed how they did it. There was like 3 genuinely good beauty shots of the Discovery. Yep. No bullshit, no whatever. Just like, that is good. They did all the tricks and cheats in the book to create them with lens choice and angle. But hey, they achieved it. I mean, no discredit them. And I've worked with Discovery.
And that was one of our biggest complaints reviewing season 1 was no beauty passes. And if we did see the ship, it was too dark, not well lit.
Absurdly dark. Yeah.
So they paid attention to the fans and actually gave us a few in season 2. So I mean, that's good.
They were hiding because they weren't proud of it. I mean, that's,
yeah.
You know. And I've actually done some work with Discovery now, and it's really interesting to try and animate that thing because it's so flawed, but you're still going to make it look good. That's the job of an artist. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Zaraxis throws in a $5 super chat, so
hey.
Thank you very much. Discovery would look so much better if they didn't use so many features in their shots that consistently cut down hugely on render times.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, I think we're going to call it quits there. Zaraxis has the last super chat slot, so good job.
Surprise snipe.
And, yeah, surprise tonight for sure. But I'd like to thank Vance. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully more people will watch this after the fact. We got up to about 55 people at one point here, but you know, I do enjoy a lot of your videos. I haven't seen them all. I will admit to that, but there's so many out there, so I need to go back and watch the playlist. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there are people who said, "I haven't seen all your films," and I'm sitting there going, "I haven't seen all my films." So I don't take offense to it. So you're good, man.
I mean, ask Stuart right now if he's seen every Trekyards episode. Please ask him that.
Have you seen every Trekyard episode?
For the first year, I watched them all because I was like so happy with them. I was so proud, and I'm still proud. But people are like, I love the video that you just released yesterday about the such and such a ship, and I'm like, that was filmed probably 6 months ago, and I remember nothing that I said. So yeah, I understand.
Man, falling off the wagon.
Yeah.
Whereas I've watched every single episode. Because I've made.
Do you remember them all? Do you remember what's in what? Though?
I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But I've edited them all, so I remember them all. At least I know them all.
This is true.
I've edited Stuart coughing thousands of times.
Yes,
thousands and thousands of times.
Anyway, as I was saying, we're closing out. So thank you, Vance, for joining us. Is there anything you want to tell the viewers out there before you leave?
No, I appreciate you guys' support. I thank you both for having me on. This was a real treat. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I thank you both. Honestly, it's a real treat. You guys are legends. You know, whether you guys believe it or not, you guys are. So it's a real treat. So thank you both, honestly, from the bottom of my heart for having me on. I appreciate it. So thank you.
It was a long time coming. It was a little overdue. So
we still need to book a long way from home chat with you on your own show.
Absolutely. Well, when I come back from my little bit of a break from being on YouTube, I'll hit you back up and we'll talk about your film and we'll get you going, man. So absolutely.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll call it there. So again, thank you, Vance, for joining us. And until next time. He's Commander Cocking.
He's Captain Foley and guest.
Oh, over there, I guess. That's you, Vance.
Say your name.
Introduce yourself or say goodbye.
Vance Major Owen.
There you go. Perfect.
There you go. No Budget Productions. Go check them out on YouTube and like the videos, subscribe, and all that jazz. You know the routine.